Hello guys, welcome back to Tactical Trafford, and today we want to talk about a special player that has been linked to Manchester United in the last 48 hours. So guys, who is this player? I want to talk about Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz is a player that has been linked to Manchester United in the last 48 hours. He was playing in Villa last season. He left to Juventus for a swap deal, though it has not really worked out for him. But I want to give you guys the benefit of having Douglas Luiz in the Manchester United midfield. So guys, let's dive into this video together. So guys, the first characteristics of Douglas Luiz you're going to be looking at is his creativity. Douglas Luiz actually is a creative machine, even given the fact that he is used to playing he's used to playing like a deep line playmaker or like a box to box midfielder, but he's actually a very wonderful creative machine. He's a player that created 53 chances in the 23-24 season, and he's had like 11 assists in the last two Premier League seasons before he left for Juventus. So when it comes to creativity, that's one of the strengths of Douglas Luiz. He's a player that can be able to give long passes, he has a very good passing range that can split off defensive compactness. He's a player that can be able to that excels, especially when you're playing against a low block. He's a player that can use his passing range to be able to split defensive line, and he's also his set piece specialist. Given the fact that Christian Eriksen is going to be leaving Manchester United, we probably have Bruno Fernandes as the only set piece specialist in the squad. Douglas Luiz is actually good in penalties, in free kicks, in corner kicks, and Manchester United is going to actually need a player like Douglas Luiz, and he has a very good close control, and that makes him an asset in the opposition box. We all know that in the Ruben Amorim'S formation, you either go through the wings or you either go to the midfield. And when you want to go through the midfield through a player like Douglas Luiz, because of his close control and the way he likes to try to keep possession, he becomes an asset for us in the opposition half. So it's going to actually help us to be able to play in tight spaces. So Douglas Luiz is that player that can be able to play in tight spaces, and he's a player that can also be able to spread the play to other parts of the pitch. And when it comes to playing first time crosses or first time passes into the opposition half, Douglas Luiz is the player that actually excels in such kind of plays. And Oli Watkins and Musa Diaby actually benefited a lot from playing with Douglas Luiz, because he was used to playing those one-time passes into the opposition half that was actually very, very dangerous. So when it comes to the creativity of Douglas Luiz, he's a very creative player, and he's the player that actually received the ball from the defensive line to connect passing circuit. So Douglas Luiz is usually the player that's actually tasked with collecting the ball from the defense line and then taking it forward and try to create something. So when it comes to creativity, Douglas Luiz is actually a very creative midfielder, even though he's a midfielder that actually excelled playing as a box-to-box for Unai Emery, but he was actually very, very creative, and is also very combative. So that's what we have for the creativity of Douglas Luiz. So guys, let's go into the finishing of Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz given the fact that he's a defensive midfielder or a box-to-box midfielder, whatever you want to put it, he's actually a very good finisher and a ball striker. And most of his finishes actually come from arriving late on the box, playing one-time finishing. So when it comes to the finishing of Douglas Luiz, he's actually pretty good in finishing, and he's also a very good ball striker. And in the last two Premier League seasons before he left the Premier League, Douglas Luiz had a total of 15 goals. And also when in the 2022-23 season, actually Oli Watkins was the only Aston Villa player that had more goals than Douglas Luiz. Oli Watkins had a total of 24 goals that season, while Douglas Luiz had a total of 11 goals. So when it comes to goal contribution, you're rest assured that Douglas Luiz is the player that can be very efficient when it comes to goal contribution to the team. He's actually a very good finisher for a box-to-box midfielder. So guys, the next characteristics of Douglas Luiz you're going to be going into is his link-up play. When it comes to linking up, Douglas Luiz is an absolutely wonderful player when it comes to link-up. He knows how to link up pretty well. He knows how to command the pitch, to control the game, to control the tempo of the game. In the 23-24 season, Douglas Luiz had an accurate long ball he had 99 accurate long balls. He had like 1,000 plus successful passes, coupled with 2,455 touches in the Premier League. That tells you that he's the player that actually likes to have touches of the ball. He's a player that can link up with the defense and also join in the attacking phase. So Douglas Luiz is not a player that is also stigmatized in the first phase. Douglas Luiz is a player that can play in the first phase and in the second phase efficiently, and this is probably the kind of midfielder that Ruben Amorim needs, an athletic and a combative midfielder that can be able to help in the build-up phase, to build up, to connect with the defenders and also connect with the attackers. And if you look at some of the characteristics of Douglas Luiz, that's actually going to tell you that he's a player that can be able to play the role that Ruben Amorim wants from his midfielder effectively. So when it comes to the linking up of Douglas Luiz, he's an absolutely wonderful player when it comes to linking up. His linking up is actually very good. He likes to have more touches of the ball. If you take a look at the Aston Villa team last season, they were not really the team they were when it comes to controlling the ball. Throughout last season, Aston Villa was playing more like a transition team. Yes, they are a transition team. That is the kind of football that Emery likes to play. But you watch when they had Douglas Luiz and Boubacar Kamara in the midfield pivot, there was a little bit of control in their game. But last season, they couldn't have much of that control because Amorim'S is probably a very different profile of player from Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz is a player that actually likes to control the tempo of the game. Like Aston Villa actually plays to the tempo of Douglas Luiz. So this is probably the kind of player he is, and his link-up play is actually very wonderful. So let's go over to the defending of Douglas Luiz. Douglas Luiz is not just a technical midfielder, he's also a very combative and athletic midfielder. He's a player that actually likes to win the ball as quick as possible in the opposition half, and that's probably the kind of midfielder that Amorim wants. So in the 22-23 season, Douglas Luiz actually averaged 3.3 tackles per 90 minutes, and he also won 70.5% of his tackles, and in the 23-24 season, he actually won 65.5% of his tackles. He had 184 ground deals won, and he had 184 recoveries in the Premier League. That actually tells you that he's not a player that is just technical and cannot be able to mark. No, Douglas Luiz is not that kind of player. Douglas Luiz is like a blend of both the Kobe Meno and Casemiro in one. So Douglas Luiz can be able to be that technical player, he can be able to be that creative player, and he can also be able to do that dirty work that he wants in the team. Because if you watch the Manchester United kind of midfielder, we just have midfielders that excel in a particular area and don't excel in the other areas. So, but when it comes to Douglas Luiz, he's definitely not that kind of player. Douglas Luiz is a player that can be able to excel in actually any situation. He's a very good midfielder and he can be able to defend effectively. And so that's one of the issues that we have been having in recent years. Ruben Amorim is a coach that likes to play in a certain way. He likes to win the position as quick as possible after losing the ball, and Douglas Luiz is a player that can be able to do that effectively. That actually tells you that Douglas Luiz is a player that can be able to play in a Ruben Amorim team. So let's talk about the overall gameplay of Douglas Luiz and actually the profiling, the best position that is going to suit Douglas Luiz. So when it comes to Douglas Luiz had a total progressive pass of 63 in the 22-23 season in the Premier League. And actually players like Douglaz Rice, I think Bruno Fernandes were the players that had more progressive passes than Douglas Luiz. That actually tells you that he's a player for Manchester United, because what we have been lacking for recent years are actually midfielders that can be able to play progressive and direct passes. I think so. Going over to the Douglas Luiz situation, he's a player that can be able to connect the deepest areas of the field with the attacks, and that's actually very important, because if you watch the build-up of Manchester United, most of the time Manchester United midfielder they don't scan well enough. They tend to return the ball back just immediately after the ball is given to them. They demand for the ball, and when the ball comes, they actually decide to send the ball almost immediately. That's probably not the kind of midfielders we need. We need midfielders that can be able to control the play, be combative, and be able to scan properly before receiving the ball. And so, what's actually the best position for Douglas Luiz? He's a defensive midfielder that he's like a deep line playmaker, but when he played his best football probably was when he played as a box-to-box midfielder alongside Boubacar Kamara. So is Douglas Luiz a player that is suited to Manchester United? Absolutely yes, he is suited to Manchester United. But the situation still remains that I feel personally, my opinion is that Douglas Luiz is a player that should be able to pair with another person in the pivot. Pairing a player like Douglas Luiz and Bruno Fernandes is going to work, but probably not in all the games, because in as much as I like Bruno Fernandes, I think him playing the number 8 next season is going to really expose us a lot. Because if you're playing the 3-4-3 formation, we need combative midfielders. You don't need to be bullied in the midfield. You need to control the tempo as much as possible. And in that midfield, we need two players that can be able to do the same thing. If you look at the Man City team now, they have Rodri and Rendes. These are kind of players that like control. These are kind of players that like to do the same thing. But Bruno Fernandes is a player that actually prefers the transition kind of play, the long pass and the fast football. Douglas Luiz can be able to play that kind of football, but he's also a player that can be able to keep the tempo of the ball. So personally, I would like Douglas Luiz pairing with another person rather than pairing with Bruno Fernandes. So guys, this is all for the tactical analysis of Douglas Luiz. I would like you guys to subscribe to this channel if you find this video very interesting. It's not going to really take anything. They don't actually receive any fee to. If you want to subscribe to my channel, you can subscribe freely. I want you guys to subscribe, to like, to give me your comments on the comment section down below, which is going to actually be very helpful. It's going to motivate me a lot to keep doing these videos for you guys. So see you guys in my next video. Ciao.